Hello guys, my name is Prince and this is Math Center. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Post your comments and questions on my social media handles and I'll respond to it. We are on the topic real number system. This is the third and final video on this topic. In the previous video, we learned what binary operations are. We took a question on it. In this video, we are going to take another question on binary operation. So let's look at the question. The operation delta is defined by A delta B is equal to 1 over 2 into brackets A minus B. Form a table of the operation on the set 4, 6, 8. Is the set closed under the operation delta? II. Determine whether the operation delta is A. Commutative, B. Associative, III. From the table, find A. 4 delta 4, B. 4 delta 8, and C. 6 delta 8. What does this question mean? This is what it means. There is this operation called delta. That is how we pronounce. That's the name for this symbol, delta, and it's being defined by this 1 over 2 giving us A 1 over 2 into bracket A minus B. That is, if you have A delta B, to find the results you have to subtract B from A, then you divide the results by 2. This is an example. So delta here is an example of a binary operation because it is combining two values to give us a result. We are to construct a table for the operation on this set. Then we are to determine whether the set is closed under the operation. I will explain what that statement means, whether the set is closed under the operation, after we've drawn the table. So our first task here is to draw the table for the operations on this set. So what this means is that we are going to use these numbers 4, 6, and 8 to draw a table using this definition for the operation. Now, this is how the table is going to look like. So we have 4 columns, then 4 rows. So you draw your table like this with the set 4, 6, 8 listed here, then 4, 6, 8 also here. So this is how we fill the table. We are going to fill these empty spaces. This is how it goes. We are going to take 4 delta 4, then we perform that operation using the definition above. The value that we get, we will write it here. So we know that the definition is A delta B is equal to 1 over 2 into bracket 4 A minus B. So the first one we are going to take is 4 delta 4. So if we have 4 delta 4, we are going to get, now the definition says is 1 over 2 into bracket A. So in this case, since we are doing 4 delta 4, A is now 4 and B is also 4. So 4 minus 4. Now we know that this is going to give us 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 4 is 0. So 1 over 2 times 0 is going to give us 0. So we have 4 delta 4 to be 0. We move on to the next one, which will be 4 delta 6. So we are going to perform that operation. So 4 delta 6. You are going to use the definition to compute for it. So it's going to 1 over 2 into bracket. Now since we have 4 delta 6, A is now 4 and B is now 6. So 4 minus 6. And we know that this is going to be equal to, so we had this to be 0. So 4 minus 6, so we are going to get 1 over 2. We know that 4 minus 6 is minus 2. So 1 over 2 times minus 2 give us minus 1. So minus 1. Then we move on to the next one. 4 delta 8. So 4 delta 8. We took the first one, 4 delta 4, 4 delta 6. So we are going to go 4 delta 8. So 4 delta 8 will give us 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 8, because A is now 4 and B will be 8. So we are going to get, this is going to give us 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 8 is minus 4. So 1 over 2 times minus 4 will give us minus 2. So this place will be minus 2. Then you come to the next one. So you are going to take 6 now. So 6 delta 4. So 6 delta 4 will give us 1 over 2. This time 6 is the first one, so 6 is now A. So you replace A with 6, so 6, then minus B is now 4, so 4. You are going to get 1 over 2 into bracket 6 minus 4 is 2. So we are going to have 1 over 2 times 2, and that will give us 1 over 2 times 2 will give us 1. So 6 delta 4 will give us 1. We move on to the next one, which is 6 delta 6. So 6 delta 6 is going to be 1 over 2 into brackets 6 minus 6, which will give us 1 over 2. We know that 6 minus 6 is 0, so 0. So 1 over 2 times 0 will give us 0. So this place will be 0. Now we have 6 delta 8. So 6 delta 8. Now 6 delta 8 will give us 1 over 2 into bracket 6 minus 8. We know that 6 minus 8 is minus 2, so we are going to get 1 over 2 into bracket minus 2, and that 1 over 2 times minus 2 will give us minus 1. So here will be minus 1. I'm going to clean here so that I can get space for the next part. So I'm cleaning some parts so that I can get space for us to continue. Okay. So we can continue now. I'm going to bring the pen back. This time I'm changing the color so that it doesn't confuse you. So we are taking for 8, we are moving on to 8 now. So 8 delta 4. So 8 delta 4 will give us 1 over 2 into bracket 8 minus 4. So this is going to give us 1 over 2 to bracket 8 minus 4, we know is 4. So 1 over 2 times 4 will give us 2. So we have 8 delta 4 giving us 2. Look at 8 delta 6. So 8 delta 6, we are going to get 1 over 2 into bracket 8 minus 6. And that is going to give us 1 over 2 into bracket. You know that 8 minus 6 is 2. So 1 over 2 times 2 will give us 1. So here is 1. Then we have 8 delta 8. We know that 8, sorry, I have to clean that. So I'm cleaning it. Okay. So 8 delta 8 is equal to 1 over 2 into bracket 8 minus 8, and that will give us 1 over 2 into bracket 8 minus 8 is 0, so 1 over 2. So if you have 1 over 2 times 0, that is going to give us 0. So this place is 0. So you can see from here that we have now completed the table. So finally the table is going to look like this. 0, we have, so I'm going to bring the pointer. So we have 4 star 4 giving us 0, 4 star 6 giving us negative 1, 4 star 8 giving us negative 2, 6 star 4 giving us 1, 6 star 6 giving us 0, 6 star 8 giving us negative 1, 8 star 4 giving us 2, 8 star 6 giving us 1, and 8 star 8 giving us 0. Now the question said that we should determine whether the operation is closed under the set. Now this is what that means. We know that we were given the set 4, 6, 8. Now for an operation to be closed under the set, you will see that after you finish with the table, all the members or all the numbers that you used in filling the set must be, all the numbers that you used in filling the table must be in the set. So this is what I mean. These numbers here should have been 4, either 4, 6 or 8. The members in the table must not occur, none of them must occur outside the set. But we can see clearly that 0 is not in the set of 4, 6 and 8. Negative 1 is not in it, 1 is not in it, and 2 is also not in it. So from there we can say that the set is not closed under the operation because negative 1, 0, 1 and 2 are not in the set 4, 6 and 8. So for the set to have been said to be closed, all these must be either 4, 6 or 8. But since negative 1, 0, 1 and 2 that are in the table are outside the set or are not in the set, we say that the set is not closed under the operation delta. Now let's move on to the next part. We have to determine whether delta is commutative. In the first video, we said that for commutativity, A operation B should be the same as B operation A. So in this case, our operation is delta. So A delta B should be the same as B delta A. So if delta is commutative, then we can take any example from the set that we have. If delta is commutative, then from the table 4 star 4 delta 8 should be equal to 8 delta 4. Now if this is satisfied, then we can say that delta is commutative. Once again, you can pick any example. You can pick any example from the table. You can pick 4 delta 6, 4 delta 8. You can pick any example. But do not pick 4 delta 4, 6 delta 6 or 8 delta 8, because we can see clearly from here that A and B must be different. So you can pick any two different numbers. So here I decided to pick 4 and 8. So for this to be commutative, then we say that 4 delta 8 should be equal to 8 delta 4. So after we've done the calculations and 4 delta 8 is equal to 8 delta 4, then we can say that delta is commutative. So let's look at this. 4 delta 8 is giving us negative 2 when we do the computation, because we know that the operation is giving us 1 over 2 into bracket A minus B. So 4 delta 8 to give us 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 8. And after this, we see that we are getting negative 2. Now, let's look at 8 delta 4. 8 delta 4 is giving us 2. So while 4 delta 8 is giving us negative 2, 8 delta 4 is giving us 2. And we know that negative 2 is not equal to 2. So since 4 delta 8 is not equal to 8 delta 4, we say that delta is not commutative. Once again, you can pick any example. You can pick 6 delta 8, you can pick 8 delta 4, you can pick 4 delta 6. You can use any of them to try. Now remember that if you are picking 4 delta 6, then you should know that 4 delta 6 should be equal to 6 delta 4. Then you try it. If one of them is not commutative, it means that the rest are also like that. So since 4 delta 8 is not equal to 8 delta 4, we see that delta is not commutative. Let's look at for associativity. We learned in the first video that for associativity, A operation B into bracket operation C must be equal to A operation B operation C into bracket. Now, since the operation here is delta, what it means is that A delta B into bracket delta C should be equal to A delta B delta C into bracket. So once again, we pick any example. Remember, any example. So I decided to pick 4 delta 6 into bracket delta 8. If delta is associative, then 4 delta 6 delta 8 should be equal to 4 delta into bracket 6 delta 8. Now you can see from here that we just changed the position of the bracket. So in the first, or in the left hand side, the brackets are with the first two. Then on the right hand side, the brackets are with the last two. So we pick the first one. We are going to solve for the first one. If we are able to get this as equal to the second one, then we say that delta is associative. So we are going to take the left hand side. When we take the left hand side, we have 4 delta 6 delta 8. Remember that I said whenever you have this, you first have to compute for what is in the bracket. So we are going to compute for 4 delta 6. Now if you are computing for 4 delta 6, remember the definition is 1 over 2 into bracket A minus B. So in this case, 4 becomes A and 6 becomes B. So we are going to get 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 6, and that is going to give us negative 1. Now, since we have what is in the bracket to be negative 1, you are going to replace 4 delta 6 with negative 1. So we are going to get negative 1 delta 8. Then we do the computation again. So negative 1 delta 8 is going to give us, so in this case, negative 1 is going to be A and 8 is going to be B. So after we've done the computation, you are going to get negative 4.5. Negative 4.5. So we can see from here that 4 delta 6 into bracket delta 8 is giving us negative 4.5. Remember, you first compute for what is in the bracket. After we did that, we got negative 1. Then you replace what is in the bracket with the answer that you have. Then you do the final computation. That final answer will be the answer for this. So 4 delta 6 into bracket delta 8 is giving us negative 4.5. So this is the left hand side. On the left hand side, we got negative 4.5. Let's look at what we are going to get for the right hand side. The right hand side is 4 delta 6 delta 8 into bracket. So once again, you do what is in the bracket first. So you are going to do 6 delta 8. If you are doing 6 delta 8, 6 is now A and 8 is now B. So you are going to get 1 over 2 into bracket 6 minus 8. And that is going to give us negative 1, because 6 minus 8 will give you negative 2. 1 over 2 times negative 2 give us negative 1. Now we replace what we have in the bracket, which is negative, we replace it with negative 1. So we are going to get 4 delta negative 1, because 6 over 8 is now negative 1. Then you do the computation with this. So 4 delta negative 1 will give us 1 over 2 into bracket 4 minus 1. So because we are having minus in the bracket, that's why I brought the first one as square brackets. Then the normal bracket will be inside the square bracket. So in this case, don't forget that the definition of the operation is 1 over 2 into bracket A minus B. So This time 4 is going to be A, so A will be equal to 4 and B will be equal to -1. But remember that there is already a negative sign here, so A, this time A, you replace A with 4, so you have 4 here, then the negative sign will come, but the B is also coming with another negative sign, so it's going to be 4 minus -1, and that is going to give us 4 plus 5. So we are going to get 1/2 into bracket 4 plus 1. Sorry, that's going to give us 4 plus 1. So we are going to get 1/2 into bracket 4 plus 1, which is 5. So we are going to get 1/2 times 5, and that is going to give us 2.5 as shown here. So we can now say that 4 star 6 star 8 into bracket is 2.5. Remember that when we did for the left hand side, we got -4.5. The right hand side is giving us 2.5. So we can say that the left hand side, which is 4 star 6 into bracket star 8, is not equal to the right hand side, which is 4 star 6 star 8 into bracket. So delta is not associative. III says that from the table we should find 4 delta 4. So we have our table here. So if you are supposed to find 4 delta 4, all we need to do is to read 4 delta 4 from the table. So 4 delta 4 will give us 0. So we pick that. We are supposed to find 4 delta 8. So we read 4. Sorry, I have to clean here. So from here, this is what you are going to do. You read 4 delta 8. So 4 delta 8 will give us -2. So we pick -2. Then the next is 4 delta 6. 6 delta 8. So we read 6 delta 8. So 6 delta 8 is going to give us -1. So that is also going to give us -1. Thank you so much for watching this video and all the videos on real number system. This is the end of the topic.